we are going to visit Guillermo in his new home.
I want you to have my scientific devices. That there is my anal speculum. Seen some action, but you're more than welcome to it.
Sometimes a vampire will go into a super slumber.
Happy New Year, 1996!
Woo! We forgot to wake Jerry up. Oops.
This one's on us.
So, you let me sleep for 50 years? What have you been doing?
Every day I am learning the dark arts of corporate America. TGI, FML, NGL, lol.
What is our current dark purpose?
Don't sing if you want to live long. They have no use for your song. You're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead and out of this world. Now your hope and compassion is gone. You've sold out your dream to the world. Stay dead, stay dead, stay dead. You're dead and out of this world.
You're listening to League Podcast Vampire Council. What We Do in the Shadows podcast, Season 6, Episode 1. The Return of Jerry. I'm Matt Dursin.
Clay Inferno here.
Clay and all who are listening, if anyone is, welcome back. This is the final season now of What We Do in the Shadows. So maybe the final season of Vampire Council. We might do other stuff.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, technically, to be Colin Robinson about it, we could cover the seasons we haven't done before. You know
It's
what
true.
I mean?
We haven't done every season, and we never
Which
did the
would be
movie.
harder to do with Curbcast because but we could. You know, if like we're
there were
really we
10 seasons of Curb before we
yeah,
start.
but
What did we
it
start?
would be
Season 9?
easier with Vampire Council.
Yeah, it would. But we might decide to do it. But for now, we're gonna keep on keeping on here. And this is great though. I mean, like this is. I'm glad. I'm not saying I'm glad it's ending, but sometimes it's good when a show just you feel like you've reached. You don't want to go too long, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
Exactly.
Like West Street. But I do want to say at the top that we don't know if we have new listeners or whatever because it's the last season. You can join the Vampire Council on our Facebook group, and it's on our website. But if you type in vampcouncil.com, that brings you to all of our previous Vampire Council episodes. So if you wanted to listen to this show from when we started, it's at vampcouncil.com. And then you can join our Facebook group where we always post it and also post like funny What We Do in the Shadows memes that we steal from the other What We Do in the Shadows meme groups.
And while
It's a
you're
good
there,
place.
you can look up the Rock and Roller Cola scroll while you're there.
Jared.
We'll get there. But like they actually go to the Vampire Council chambers, I guess you'd call it, in this episode.
Oh, you're going skipping right to the end.
It's a little preview. We're going to go through the whole episode.
Oh,
Don't you worry.
preview. Okay.
Don't
Yeah,
you
well,
worry. Just a preview. But I'm just saying, I was glad to see that,
It was very
We
funny.
call ourselves the Vampire Council, but I feel like you haven't seen it as much.
Oh, I see. I didn't even put the connection there. Yeah, that this is the Vampire Council. They go to the headquarters. I see what you're saying. I get it now.
Yeah, well,
I'm a little slow.
It's okay. We'll get there, and it'll all come back to you. So, but yeah, I mean, it's great. So previous seasons, like sometimes they sort of ended on almost a cliffhanger, and like, oh, what are they gonna do? And they come back, or like when Nadja and Guillermo went off to England, and there was like baby Colin Robinson and all that stuff. Like it was always kind of like, oh, what's gonna happen? This season is kind of just like literally the first season is them all sitting around reading. It's kind of funny, and even the doll,
it's very much, Nadja doll.
The Nadja
It's
doll is
very
reading a
much
tiny
like
little book.
Cartoon or sitcom, complete reset.
Yeah,
There's some stuff going on with Guillermo, but it's not really that different.
Right. I mean, he's the only one really that has any kind of arc, I guess, or well, that carries over from last season. I'll say. I guess that's the way to put it.
Right. But still, it's pretty much a reset.
Yeah. But speaking of, Laszlo brings it right up. He says, since Gizmo, he still calls him Gizmo, which is awesome, but he doesn't live here anymore, and he wants to repurpose the space under the stairs that he used to live in. And he says they kind of are talking about what he used to do with it before Gizmo came along. And Laszlo says he used to store his precious volumes. And is that Playboy that he's got?
It's like it's a nudie mag, but it's Big Jugs Weekly or something. It's like
it's got like it looks like a big ass. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
it's definitely a lot of skin.
He goes, my precious volumes.
My precious volumes. And Nandor says he used to use it for his calisthenicals, which was a weird, funny word anyway. So they say, do you know who would remember? Jerry would remember. And Jerry was the fifth roommate who we have never met before, but they seem to remember him fondly. They said he was a good guy, a man with a plan, or a vampire with a plan. Pyre is what Nadja said.
Yeah, and they do like a montage, like all the old photos, but with Jerry in them, like the New Year's, like 1923 and stuff. And
I mean, it's kind of like the opening credits to the show itself, like with the pictures of themselves, kind of the pictures of them through history. Yeah. Or so, they're in like the 60s and they got
now with Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry's sort of inserted in. I like how Laszlo says no bullshit. And he says, so they're like, wham, bam, thank you, mister. And he carries the R over.
He says, just
Colin
listen
Robinson.
to his name, Jerry the Vampire.
Yeah.
Not Vlad the whatever. Jerry the Vampire.
Yeah, but he even he takes a shot at Nandor, too. It's like, blah, blah, the relentless. Like,
yeah.
Well, the sad is, well, not sad now, but at the beginning, I mean, so far it's fine. But Colin Robinson says he may have been the only person in this house who liked me. And Nandor is sitting there and he says, that's true. It's kind of sad. So they explain what happened to Jerry. He wanted to take a super slumber. Apparently, sometimes vampires have to really recharge, and they go what they call a super slumber. Mm-hmm. And he was supposed to be woken up on New Year's Eve, 1996. So he's been asleep for 50 years. Nandor's like, well, we had a lot going on. That's why they didn't wake him up.
For some reason, that really reminded me of how in Iron Man 2, I think it's like Y2K, but like they show like Happy and Tony at the AIM party in 1999. And,
that was Iron Man 3, I think, right?
Oh yeah, Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
And so they kind of like go back in time and they're like wearing like 90s suits and stuff. I was just trying to like picture the vampires in 1996. I was at the height of my horniness in 1996.
1996? Yeah, I mean, I was a college student. I was enjoying myself. But I don't remember exactly what I did on New Year's Eve. I probably didn't do anything that exciting. But anyways, so they go downstairs to try, because like they're like, where is his coffin? And they open up a coffin that they think he's in there, but in like this just dead body parts just fall out. And they're like, no, that's not Jerry. That's Laszlo's experiments. He wanted to create life. And
they're like, it smells like old beef. They're like, he's like, he's like, Jerry's come out in 7 or 8 pieces.
Yeah. No, this is not Jerry. It was his, and he just discarded this. But so they say like he's going to take all these, disembodied body parts and put them together and create a living being. And now he's like Frankenstein. He's like, who? He doesn't acknowledge Frankenstein. Now, this is a question that I have for you. Does Frankenstein like exist in this world? Like, is he like a real person?
Well,
I can't quite figure that out.
I'll skip forward to technically the next episode when, or maybe it's this one where Colin says, like, Dr. Frankenstein. He goes, who?
Yeah, he does it
and he's
multiple times in these 2 episodes.
He's like, Dr. Frankenstein from the book and the countless movies and TV shows. And he goes, never heard of him.
Yeah, Laszlo has never heard of this guy. It's almost like he doesn't want to acknowledge. I feel like Laszlo knows, but he doesn't.
I feel like he knows too, but he doesn't want to say that. He wants to make it his original idea. It's like when John comes up with an idea for our main podcast, and I'm like, what? That was my idea years ago.
It is funny, though. He holds up Laszlo. There's like a head there, and he holds it up, and he's like talking about how he holds it up like Yorick from like Hamlet or something. And he's talking about like, oh, and when you can create life, you are, like, and then the eye pops out of the head. It's kind of funny. But anyway, so then they wake up Jerry, and he thinks it's 1996. He's like, oh, man, hey. And he's like, hey, Nandor.
He's like, that was a long one.
Yeah.
He's like, wow, that was a long one. He's like, Happy New Year. And they're all like, kind of like, yeah, they don't admit to him immediately that they forgot.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, hey.
Yay, great. Yeah. But like, he's very personable. He's all like, oh, Nadja, your look is, beautiful as ever and everything.
Yeah, and he's like, Dr. Cravensworth, I presume?
Yep.
Yes. And,
yes, that's correct. And then Colin Robinson says, hey, Jer Bear.
Yeah, and Jerry, who is played by Michael Patrick O'Brien, a funny comedian I've seen on a bunch of stuff. He's on SNL skits and some I Think You Should Leave and stuff like that. So, and very like Lugosi looking, or at least very good Halloween Dracula-esque vampire style. Like he's this classic vampire.
Classic. It's true. Yeah, Lugosi-esque. Definitely a good way to put it. And he says, hey, Jer Bear. And he's like, hey, old chap. Like, he doesn't remember.
Yeah, he doesn't remember.
Oh, it's so embarrassing for him. So they're like, hey, how did Conquering the New World go? And they're like,
yeah.
He's like, now, did you conquer the whole New World? Like just the United States or the whole New World? And they're kind of like, well.
Yeah, and I think we have a well-timed commercial break, because then they show them all in the living room, and Jerry's doing the exposition of like, so you guys forgot to wake me up, and now it's 50 years later.
And you conquered. They explained that they conquered their street,
and part of Ashley Street.
Yeah,
Ashley Street. Most of Ashley Street.
Yeah. And then Colin Robinson keeps trying to explain to him like what he's missed, and I love it. He's like, you keep bringing this telephone that can fit in your pocket to me, like his phone. He's like, no, this is very important. Like this is and he does the dress color. Do you remember the dress color thing? I know you.
That was huge.
It.
I do remember it. Yeah.
Do you see like blue or gold? Right.
Yeah.
That was like.
I was working an event. I actually have like a weird fond memory about that, because I was working an event, and it kind of came across our phones, and we were like, there was a wide variety of people there, and we were talking about it and doing the dress thing, and like, it's people I don't see that often, but every once in a while, these people will message me and be like, remember we were talking about the dress thing like 10 or 15 years ago or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it comes up, it's like a bonding thing.
I mean, it was a big deal. I mean, I don't really even remember the science, like why you would see a certain thing, but it was like a mental thing or whatever. I don't know, but it was a big deal. It was crazy. And it was like one of those things that everybody talked about for a little while.
Yeah. And so, but anyway, so Jerry's like, well, if you haven't conquered anything, like, what is our current dark purpose?
Yeah, right. Our dark purpose. And then, so he says, okay, he also wants to know, like, humans still don't know that vampires are this. And they're like, oh, no, yeah, definitely not. And if anyone did ever find out, like Laszlo's like, they would, die. I forget what he says. Something very flowery,
Yeah, like
Laszlo
rue
way.
the day.
Yeah,
something
and then he's
that.
like, so why is there a camera crew here filming us? And they're like, oh, them. Like it's kind of funny. Like they really, so far this
like
season,
they're cool, and then Nando's like, they are very cool.
But they are acknowledging the camera. Like they do. They've done it before, but they're really right out there. Like the camera crew is a big part of these first few episodes. So
yeah, that's true.
It's pretty cool. But yeah, so like they're explaining like, oh no, it's cool. Yeah, it's all good.
And he's like, well, have you even thought of who they're gonna show this to? And they just like all look confused.
I know it is like Jerry's pointing out all these things like about,
but they look confused and then they instantly forget. It's like they have like the attention span of the Fly. You know what I mean?
Right. And plus, Colin Robinson keeps trying to show him things that he's missed. And one of the things he said here, he comes and just puts headphones on him and says, just listen to this. It only goes up to 1988. It's Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, of course. He's like, but someone's going to ask you about the rock and roller cola wars. Which is...
Yeah, because he's like, he listens to it. He's like, Walter Winchell, you know, something Yankees. He's like, I was here for all this.
Yeah, I know all this stuff. Yeah. But the funny thing is, I mean, like rock and roller, it's in the lyrics. They're two separate things. It's not a rock and roller cola war. You know what I mean? It's not the name.
Yeah,
of
it is.
war.
No, it's like Pepsi and Michael Jackson. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like that's the only reason I know this is because in the circle, we'll get there in the second episode, but in the like kind of circle of comedy that I listened to, like the best show, we had Tom Schropling on our show, and like Tim Heidecker, Office Hours.
Tim Heidecker, who appears in the next episode.
Yep. We'll get there, but
we'll get there, right?
But in that circle of comedy and like other kind of comedians, kind of Michael Patrick O'Brien's kind of ilk, like that sort of generation of comedy, like they make fun of that song all the time. And that's one of the lines they always make fun of. So
okay.
Whoever was a writer is probably other guys that are in the second episode that are writers on and producers on the show probably inserted that in there because it's like a common like underground like kind of like meme joke to talk about the rock and roller cola wars. Also, you're also right because it doesn't make any sense. Like when Billy Joel's whole song is fucking nonsense, and that's an especially terrible line. That you know what I mean in a bad song.
I mean, I get it. At the time, it was like whatever, but yeah, it is become like the butt of a lot of jokes. But yeah, I know that's what the cola wars were. You know, Pepsi versus Coke. That's the cola wars. But like, I guess I didn't put the Michael Jackson like connection together there. So it's a good one. It's a good one. But anyway, yeah, he's like, no, I know this stuff. Like, you know, he's like, Jerry's more just like, what are you doing? Like, what have you been doing for 50 years? You know, and they're like, So yeah, Nadja, and she brings Nandor into like, she's like, oh, she tells the camera, I'm just going to talk to Nandor for a second. And they go in this like, another room without the camera, and the camera just goes outside. It just goes outside to film them.
Like we're gonna have a private conversation, but the camera crew still like sticks the camera like through like a lattice or whatever to like capture them.
It still captures them. And Nadja's like, why do we have a camera crew filming us all the time? And I love Nandor's like, well, who wouldn't want to film 3 exalted vampires and also Colin Robinson? Like, he takes a shot at Colin Robinson. So they're like, well, why do we have them here? And none of them can remember. And they say, you know who to remember? Guillermo. So they decide, we got to go talk to Guillermo. And Nadia's like, where is he? And he's like, oh, well, you know, he's getting his life together.
He's got a new life and a new place to live. And I don't want to bother him kind of thing.
Yeah, also, he's trying to play it
continuing,
off.
Yeah, but also continuing that basically what we do in the shadows is the great romantic love story between Nandor and Guillermo. Right. Oh, I'm giving him some space,
Yeah, exactly. But she's like, oh, we gotta go see him. Like, where does he live? Oh, and so he lives out in the shed. Like, he moved outside the house, literally into the yard. What they later referred to as Laszlo's Jack Shack.
Yeah, because like Nandor was like, let's go visit him, and Nadja thinks they're like going to like bat and fly away to go visit him, but they don't even make it out of the yard.
Yeah. She's like, what is he doing living out here? He's like, well, he needed a place to live and whatever. But yeah, this is the first time we see Harvey Guillermo, and yeah, he's living out there. He said it smelled pretty bad. He said there was a smell. There were some stains on the ground that he couldn't get off. But he pays $350 a week there, and he works at Panera. I love that thing. I feel like they made jokes about Panera last season, right? Like,
yeah. Well, you remember when Patton was in? He was like at Panera when Nandor killed Patton.
That's right.
But also, yeah, it could be like some like sponsorship thing. You know what I mean? Like
maybe
like product placement.
Panera bread.
And it's funny too because they do a little montage of Guillermo like cleaning up the Jack Shack, and there's like this chair with like not dildos but like all sorts of restraints and like collars and spiked collars and shit all over it that Laszlo used to jack off in his special chair. He's like, it's a mildewy scent. I just can't really get rid of the scent.
Yeah, he's definitely, I mean, obviously Laszlo's into some, but yeah, but like they're talking and, Guillermo and Nandor are kind of like, oh yeah, like you sort of like a recent breakup or something like so how you doing? How's Panera bread? But then she says, Nadja says, where do you go to toilet or something like she puts it in such a weird way. She's like, how do you toilet or something like, and he's like, oh, well, I usually save it up for when I go to work. She's like, even pee-pee? And he's got these, meanwhile, he's got these buckets all around and he's kind of trying to like hide them. And she's like, I'm going to take your bucket, which smells like pee-pee. He's like, no.
And he's like, why? Why are you taking it? And she like, the moment is like, why not? And then Guillermo looks at the camera because he can't say that he actually used it because he just denied that he used.
Right.
And if you look on the bucket, there's like there's a roll of toilet paper on the handle of the bucket.
Yeah, I know. It's so gross. So anyway, they go outside, and Laszlo and Jerry come back, and Laszlo, of course, they were bats, and he comes down, and he says, "Human form." And he
yeah, they bat in from the sky.
Yeah, I love. He's like, I've been showing Jerry all the human with their rubber chariots or whatever. It's chariots with the rubber wheels. He's like, again, I know what a car is.
Yeah. And importantly, they went to go feed.
Yeah. Oh, yes. But and then he thinks he thinks Guillermo is Laszlo's experiment, that he made. Like he's like, oh, so it worked. You created life,
Laszlo boy. You did it. You did it. and then Nadja goes, that's Guillermo, and he goes, oh look, he recognized when he said his name.
I know. He's like, no, this is our familiar. He's like, oh, well, okay, then go fetch my coffin. And they're like, well, he's not really a familiar anymore. He's like, what? Like, Jerry's just like, what the fuck? Like, he actually brings Nandor in the house. He's like, what is this? You used to be Nandor the Relentless. Now you have a human, what? Like, he's not even your familiar. Like, familiars come and go, like, what do you? But so he's like, Jerry's basically sort of like building them all up a little bit in a way. So, and then we have, this is a pretty obscure reference too. And maybe not, but maybe because we live in Massachusetts, but Colin Robinson tries to show Jerry a video of Michael Dukakis riding the tank, which
he's like, first he's like, get that thing away from me. And then Then Colin says, I wrote it down because it was such a great quote. Fine, but if someone asks you why Michael Dukakis was riding in a tank, you look pretty dumb.
Yeah, right. I mean, literally, I don't think anyone under the age of like 40 wouldn't even know what you know what I mean, what you were talking about. If that,
yeah,
I mean, that
probably
was like
not.
1980.
Well, it was a presidential election.
1988. I think. It was 88. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
my mistake.
Yeah,
but
right.
Still,
but yeah, you're right. I mean, we're old now, so
we're old. We were young when that
that
happened, but I still remember it. And I don't know if it's because he was our governor. You know, it maybe or what, but like that's a pretty obscure thing.
Well, it's also very much like something that I'm only making the connection now. Like that's something that would be in like the extra verse to We Didn't Start the Fire.
We didn't start the fire.
You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
a weird like political like kind of thing that happened that Billy Joel would have fit in there, but you know, maybe the song came out before that or what, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
I think the
That
song
he
came
didn't
out
he didn't talk about stuff that was happening right in 1988 when the song came out.
Right,
you know?
right. I don't know when he was writing it, but like it's I don't know. People say it cost him the election. Who knows? But yeah, that was a funny. I mean, I guess it just sort of shows, you know, like the kind of things. Yeah, that Colin. Oh, you're gonna look pretty dumb. It's like, no, I don't think anybody's gonna remember that one. But anyway, so
I guess I just knowledge drop. We Didn't Start the Fire, the original one.
Right, the Billy Joel one, because there was a
1989. Yeah, Fall Out Boy made a dumb one. Speaking
Boy.
of bands that I can't stand,
a dumb
dumb band, good name.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good name. So, anyways, yeah, now Jerry's like, well, it's good to see you two speaking again, because apparently Nadja and Laszlo were not speaking when he went to sleep, and they don't even remember. And he brings up, they asked Colin Robinson, why weren't they speaking? Do you remember us not speaking 50 years ago? And he says, yeah, Nadja wanted to go out into the world and like humans, you know, and rise up through the ranks.
Yeah.
And Laszlo forbade it.
He said it was too dangerous. And like Colin is like making fun of Laszlo, and he said it was too dangerous or some bullshit.
Yes, that's right.
Colin's lines in this are so good. Like
I know
he's really stepped
great.
up this season.
So they all have like little like one-on-ones with the camera. And Laszlo, he says he spent the last 50 years. He's like, I've been here pulling my pood. It's a lot of references to him whacking off in these episodes. And then there's a lot of negative energy in the house. And Colin Robinson, they show him. He's like, yeah, I can't stop. Like it's just seeping in, and it's going straight to my hips. And he's getting fat. Like really?
Yeah, he's like, yeah. There's a lot of bad. He's like, I can't help that the bad energy is like I'm not seeking it out. Like it's almost like just junk food to him that there's bad vibes because of Jerry's showed up and they're all fighting about bullshit. Well, now,
they all feel bad because Jerry is saying like, "Oh, you didn't conquer the world, and you didn't create a monster. You didn't, do any of the things." And
Laszlo and Nadja have rekindled. They forgot they were even having this argument, but then she was like, "That's exactly like you to have that."
Yeah, she's all pissed at him.
Yeah, so then they're not talking to each other again.
Right. Right. So then they all go out to the Jack Shack. They all go ask Guillermo for some help, and he's like, "Well,
you need his help. They always need his help."
He gives them advice, even though he says he doesn't work there, he doesn't work for you, and he's like, "But it's Jerry that you introduced this new." And they're like, "No, Jerry's great." And they're like, "No, you introduced this.
Such a cool
new
guy.
element."
like Nandor can't ever not be like, "Oh, he's so cool." You know what I mean? Like that's just part of his personality. And Guillermo's just trying to explain, like, no, like you have a friend group and then you introduce somebody else and it messes up the dynamic a little bit. And, you just need to be honest with them and stuff. And he's like, I ate you guys' shit for so long. I don't work for you anymore. Like, he's just he's not being rude to them. He's just like, I don't work for you anymore. I can't help you out with this. You guys can figure it out yourselves. And then that's when Nandor
tell Jerry, this is
will you please help us figure this out, please?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't work for you. He's like, well, as a former preeminent shit eater of Staten Island, and as a former familiar and as a former friend, because they had made some other thing where it said that he wasn't their friend, but now
Laszlo said like, well, because you were you came in and you were an unknown element. He's like, but you weren't a friend. He's like, well, I worked at it. I worked to make this whole, all these relationships work, basically. But I do like that there was a part when Laszlo says he's right, and then Nadja says, will you tell my husband who just said he's right, like she did like the voice.
They're all everybody's making fun of Laszlo.
I know, he's right, like her voice, her imitation of him is perfect. So their plan is they're gonna go talk to Jerry and then stab him with a stake. And then they're like, well, then we'll throw this holy water on him. So basically they want to kill Jerry.
Yeah, and Guillermo's like, no, like I'm not, like, I didn't say you need to, there's other ways you can patch things up without like killing him.
Yeah.
Like you just need to tell him that, things have changed and I'll let you take it from there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he has to step in.
But meanwhile, also, Colin Robinson has gotten so fat, he has one of those scooter things. Like, he can't even really walk anymore.
Yeah, he's really ballooned up.
Yeah. But anyways, so they're gonna they're not. Yeah, Guillermo like steps in, he grabs like the stake, he stops. Colin Robinson has a crossbow. He's like he ends up shooting himself in the foot.
Yeah, well, Guillermo has the he kind of has like that the vampire hunter like reflexes, like he still has his like little superpower thing. So he's like, no, you can't. He like blocks the holy water and it splashes on Laszlo, and he grabs the stake. And like Jerry's like seeing what's going on, but Guillermo's like kind of moving so fast that it's kind of like very cartoony, like blocking it. And then Colin goes, he's making a run for it. And he like moves forward in his scooter and is fat. And he shoots the crossbow and he goes, oh, it hit me in the foot and right through my orthopedic shoes. So not only is he fat on the scooter, but he has these big white orthopedic shoes on. It's so funny. And all the vampires end up hurting themselves. And they're trying to like kill Jerry because they have no like conversational skills, which is all it needs to happen. Like Guillermo's like, you can solve this with words.
Yeah. And he's like, here's what he's like, we do have something to show you. And they take him to the vampire council, the literal vampire council, and the guide is there. It's great to see her again.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, so this is Jerry, and he's like, do you want me to? She says, F Jerry. I don't know if they like.
It's like, why'd you bring him here? Am I supposed to F him?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't. Well, you can if you want, but no.
Yeah.
No. She's like, I probably will F him anyway, but just out of boredom.
I know, she's sad.
Such is the plight of the guide.
Yeah. She's kind of like sad. She's like, none of them were. She's like, I thought Nandor was the chosen one, and then Laszlo, and then Nadja, and not Colin Robinson. Like, no, not Colin Robinson.
Yeah, no, never.
She's like, none of them were self-starters. That was so funny.
Yeah.
So she thinks Jerry is the chosen one, and he's like, all right, I'm all business. She's like, all right, Lieutenant. She's like, you can just call me the guide. He's like, no, I stand on ceremony or whatever, And he starts asking about.
Yeah, well, he's like, I will call you Lieutenant, and you will like it, and kind of like in a dominant way. She's like, oh yes, sir, sir. I'm ready. She's like, pops up ready to go. She's like, I like him.
Yeah,
he's bossing me around.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is her purpose, and like she said, the other ones weren't really doing anything. So.
Yeah, and I think
he brings out People magazine, Time magazine.
Yeah.
Alexander Haig on the cover. He's like, first, I want to know all about this. We had someone a breath away from the presidency. Alexander Haig was a vampire.
He goes, Alexander the Haig.
Alexander the Haig. Yes, he was Secretary of State, we should point out, for Ronald Reagan. Another Reagan. There's Reagan references are just flying in this one. So, anyway, yeah. So, anyways, they're
getting political with like not getting political. You know what I mean? Like they're putting stuff in like that. That's not like talking about current times exactly, but it's kind of like to those of us who, skipping it, if you know, you know. If you know, you know.
Right.
Like what they're trying to say there, you know what I mean? But it's like, oh yeah, he was just not a heartbeat, so yeah, but breaths away from the presidency.
Right.
An actual vampire.
Yeah.
And even the Michael Dukakis thing. You know what I mean? Just like going back to that whole time, like the whole thing. It's funny.
So we hadn't had anyone that close since McNamara in 61. So yeah, if you know your JFK history. But anyways, so they have this sort of the final part is like they kind of talk to the three main or four, I guess. But Nadja, Laszlo, and Nandor kind of, and they're like, okay, no, we are gonna get back on this. Like Laszlo is like, I am gonna start my experiments again, and Nadja is talking about she's gonna go out into the world and get her piece of the pie or something like that. And then the producer actually talks off camera and says, what about conquering the world? And she's like, oh yeah, that too, basically.
Yeah, they all are like, yeah, and Laszlo is like, well, I'm going to create life. And they basically ask him the same thing. He's like, that is important, but not as important as creating life.
So then, then Nandor, it's going to be Nandor the Relentless again. He said, what is this? I used to be, now what am I? Like, I had a familiar, and then I made him, like, he said something about, like, now I'm Nandor the kind of nice guy.
Kind of nice guy. Like yeah. So he's like, let's refocus, and, like, he tries to have a house meeting.
Yeah, nobody.
But no one shows up.
Yeah. House meeting, but no one comes. But we get a mid-credit scene with Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, and Jerry is ordering the guide around. He's like, he wants to find out all like the things that they're talking about. Give me all you have. And then he said, and everything you have on the Rock and Roller Cola Wars. And she said, oh, yes, we have a Rock and Roller Cola scroll.
Yeah. And I think that he's like, is this the most current map of the continental United States? And it's like a ye old map with like, like all the colors we see like in our old McSorley history class. It's like an old,
right.
It's an
and they're
old,
like,
old
no.
thing. And then he's like, he says something about like, give me everything on AIDS, homeless vets.
Yeah, AIDS, crack. Bernie gets is the line.
Yeah, and that I think that those are all from the Billy Joel song.
Oh, it is. No, absolutely. Yeah, because they're all lines from the song. I actually probably know the song more than I should. I know, like, I could probably sing a lot of it.
That's one of those things. Like, if it was on, if we were like hanging out and that was like playing, we would all know most of the words.
Yeah, right.
Like as it was playing, it'd be like you'd know what was coming up next if you were listening to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not a Billy Joel fan. I mean, I have nothing really against him. My brother was a big Billy Joel fan, so he definitely knows it. But
I definitely was growing up, and then a few years ago, also we you went to Springsteen at Fenway, right?
Yeah.
I saw Billy Joel at Fenway. Nice. It was quite good. Nice. It was pretty fun. Yeah,
I mean, I would do that if I had the means.
Yeah, it was good.
We won't be putting the song, I would imagine, on our, on this podcast because we had some Spotify.
Just You're Dead. You're Dead, I think, is good. We'll put that on.
Yeah, it's fine. But in the past, I probably would have put it as like the closing, just like they did here. But we won't be doing that. But that's okay.
You don't edit this one. You've forgotten. You have forgotten.
Yes, that's right. Somebody give me the brain scramblies.
I hypnotized you. I've been doing it. So don't worry about it. No, but but noted. I will not do that. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder.
We would probably have to edit it later if we did it. At least one version.
We only want to edit it once. That's what
Yeah.
I've found from editing podcasts this past year. Once is enough.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, here we go. That's episode 1. I mean, I think it's a good jumping off point. I assume
And we should say
Yes.
you texted me about recording this episode, and you were like, they put out 3. You said they put out 3 episodes. Like, what?
Yeah.
Were they fucking nuts? Why don't they fucking stretch it out a bit?
I think this
2
is 11
is fine.
episodes.
3 is too much.
3 is a lot.
It's not like I don't mind. Like, I don't
Hmm.
mind, but I kind of do mind. Like, I kind of want to be like, it's like, I honestly get excited when there's a new Only Murders in the Building, and I know like when it's gonna come out. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, don't give me too many at once, and it's a short show.
Well, I think even that was they released like at least 2. Yeah, I mean, a lot of shows do this now. I don't get it. I don't know what the thinking is. Is it like makes it more of an event or something? I don't know. I'm sure network executives have some data or something.
Maybe they okay, like people that aren't us, privileged reviewers or whatever, they'll get a screener of the whole season because it's all done right. And and you can people can put out a spoiler-free review of the whole season. Maybe they want people like us to review them to keep the buzz going. There's 3 episodes, plenty to talk about, but they obviously don't care about us because
no, nobody does.
Nobody does. If you're still listening, thank you. But it's just funny. It's odd to have a short show. Last season, 11 episodes. They're like fucking Laszlo and his Jack Shack, just nutting it out all over the place.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, I never got the logic. Like I said, I'm sure there's some data that points to, what, but 3 is a lot. I've seen a lot of shows will do 2, but 3, I don't know. But beyond all that, I think it's it seems like this is where it's going. Nadja's gonna get a job. Laszlo's gonna be working on his Frankenstein monster type thing, and Nandor. It seems. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna become more relentless, back to basics, or if him and Guillermo are gonna be sort of patching things up as we go along.
See how the romance goes.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I watched the 3rd episode, not in preparation. I watched the first 2, and in fun, I watched the 3rd one. Because we'll have to record next week. But and so we know what's going to happen a little bit, but not much really. We'll talk about what happens, but there's still not a lot of change. There's still the sitcom reset even at the end of every episode. So and we'll see where it goes. But 11 episodes. I'm not good at math, but if it was 9, it would be a third of it is released already. So but when I was reading, kind of the headlines, and I posted on our Instagram, they said everything they ever wanted to do with the show, they put in this season. So I'm glad to be back. I'm sure it will not disappoint. They're going to do some really weird shit. They're already doing weird shit. I love it.
Yeah. I read there will be a lot of guests, a lot of people returning, a lot of people, I don't want to be spoiled, even though we're, reviewers of the show. I still don't want to know what's going to happen. But I heard some of our favorite guests will return.
Oh, so good. Well, don't spoil it for me.
I didn't read anything. I didn't read any further.
Okay, good.
So, but I'm excited.
As am I. Well, let's wrap up episode 1, and then next week we'll return with our episode 2 review.
Yes,
Wink.
Next week.
Wink.
But as Clay said, please.
Can you hear me winking?
As Clay said, please check us out on Facebook and Instagram and everything else, leaguepodcast.com or vampcouncil.com.
And just search Vampire Council on Facebook. There's maybe a couple groups there, but you'll see Vampire Council Leak Podcasts Facebook group. We got a lot of people in there. And season 6, come join us. Say you heard season 6 and you want a vampire name. I'll give you a cool vampire name.
That's right. Vampire names.
And you can still email us bat@vampcouncil.com.
Yes. Record yourself saying bat and
or just say hello.
And just say hello as well. Sure. Send it to us.
All right. Well, you ready for the countdown?
Yeah. Here we go. Let's do this.
3, 2, 1. Bat! Finally, I think we nailed that one. We did a good one. All right. See you next week. See you next wank.
Oh.
It's one of the hardest guitar pieces in the world to play.
Thank you.